Hey guys, Shannon here. Just wanted to take some time and share with you the information I found about the organization I chose to research for our final project. I chose to do my project on the Children's Home of York, which is located in York, Pennsylvania. They were established in 1865 to meet the needs of the orphans living in York County. They operated primarily as an orphanage. However, during the 1970s, the needs of the community changed, so the Children's Home of York, they restructured and they met the needs of the growing population. They began to have smaller family-like living situations, and they established group homes, foster care, emergency shelters, residential treatment facilities. Throughout this time, their mission and their vision has never wavered. They exist to empower children to thrive, to strengthen families, and to enrich communities. They currently offer therapeutic interventions to children, youth, and their families. Within the past 5 years, they have been able to add on a girls' center as well as a partial hospitalization program. The Children's Home of York is overseen by a board of directors whose role it is to see the long-term sustainability as well as oversight of the funds that are raised to make sure those funds make it to the correct programs. While they started in one county, they currently are found in 16 counties total, which include both Pennsylvania and Delaware. This year alone, they have served close to 4,000 people, have recorded 300 volunteer hours, and are celebrating 152 years of service. The Children's Home of York currently operates with 5 categories of service: foster care and adoption, residential programs, prevention services, a program called Bridges, and then also community-based programming. Throughout the next few moments, we will dive a little bit further into what these programs are, what therapies are used during these programs, what policies need to be followed, a target demographic. We'll go over the admission criteria and the goals, the overall goals of what those programs are. First, we're going to touch on the foster care and adoption program through the Children's Home of York. They label this program as the permanency program. Their goal is to secure permanent care for every child that comes through their doors. They work with children that are ages birth up to 21 years old, and they could have children in their care for a number of reasons. There could be a major family conflict, truancy, defiant and runaway behaviors. The children could be victims of physical or sexual abuse. There could be some emotional disturbances. When care is given, care is divided into 2 different categories, either kinship or non-kinship. Kinship care is simply just that there's an existing relationship with the child prior to care. So this could include aunts and uncles, cousins, siblings who are of adult age. Siblings must be over the age of 18 to qualify for kinship care. If a kinship care is not able to be worked out, then children fall into the category of non-kinship care. This is simply someone that they've just never met before. In order to fall into one of 2 categories and to be able to do foster care and or adoption, there are requirements that are required. These requirements include being 21 years of age or older, be in reasonably good health. You could be married, single, widowed, divorced. You need to be able to meet your own family's needs, but also have adequate space for the youth that would be in your care. You need to be able to provide constant supervision, obtain clearances, and pass a home safety inspection. You need to be able to work as a team. Children's Home of York, they can't express it enough, but this is a team effort, and that includes, the team includes the child or children, the resource parents, or the foster care or adoption parents, the referring agency, public school systems, and if possible, the biological parents as well. Those who are interested in foster care and adoption also need to be able to participate in training. This training can last anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. So next we're going to cover the residential programs that are offered at the Children's Home of York. It is broken into two different categories, one for male and one for females. The Independent Living Center is available for males that are ages 15 to 21. They use what's called sanctuary principles. They build their program on providing skills for success, so that way these boys and men can be successful in the workplace, at home, at school, and in their community. An assessment is done called the Casey Life Skills Assessment, and following that, individual plans are developed with caseworkers, with the men as they come into the program. The goal is to develop skills that allow them to be pro-social, handle their anger management and conflict resolution. They learn basic skills such as cooking, cleaning, doing their laundry. They also learn independent living skills such as job applications, how to do an interview. They also learn money management and time management. They are also offered treatment support and preventative services at the Independent Living Center for men, for the men and boys. In order to be admitted into this program, there are a few criteria that you must meet. This includes having the mental and physical ability to benefit from the curriculum and from the assessments that are being done and from the interventions that are offered. There has to be a willingness to participate in the program. There could possibly be someone who has completed a successful program at another facility, but the conditions just aren't right. It's not quite the right time to go back into the home yet, so this could be a stepping stone for that person. The website that I accessed did reference the fact that you will not be accepted into this program if there's an active psychotic condition happening. If you have any kind of suicidal or homicidal tendencies and ideas, or if there is a recent history of arson. The second arm to the residential programming would be for girls. This is for just a little bit younger of an age group. This is for ages 13 to 18, for girls who have serious emotional issues where medical services are needed for their cases. There is a course of treatment called the dialectical behavioral therapy, and this is used with the girls. It stresses the importance of respecting gender differences in the treatment environment. This is used with the girls at the site. The priority of the Girls Center is treating victimization, for the girls who have suffered sexual, physical, emotional abuse. A wide range of therapies are used: meditation, expressive therapies, cognitive behavioral therapies are used as well. These therapies are used to create a healthy adaptations and coping skills for the girls. PTSD is also treated in this program. And the Children's Home of York, they choose to use a model that has been adapted from the National Trauma Center. The Girls Center is very rich in intensive therapy, but they also make sure the girls receive their education as well, and that is provided through the Lincoln Intermediate Unit number 12. Now, the criteria for being admitted and accepted into this program is having the mental and physical ability to gain benefit from the program, but also there must be a history of some kind of impulsive behaviors, aggressiveness. There has to be a primary Axis I diagnosis that has been performed within 30 days prior to admission. The girls must have average intelligence to be able to benefit from the services. Girls that are in this program, they can suffer from many different diagnoses. This can include attention deficit disorder, disruptive behavior disorder, bipolar disorder, social phobias, anxiety disorders, or even borderline personality disorder. The next thing we're going to talk about are the preventative services that are offered through the Children's Home of York. The Children's Home of York, they see this as an evaluation services program. So they offer evaluations in a number of different formats. One of those would be the 5329 evaluations, which are used when you have the consideration of criminal offenses in custody cases. They use those. They offer the 28-day diagnostic evaluations, home studies, parenting and bonding assessments, risk assessments, or even supervised visitation as well. In order to provide these services, they use observation techniques, gathering historical past information, surveys, and standardized evaluations and in interviews. For the assessments and reviews, they are looking for psychological functioning, family relationships, behavioral addictions, any anger management, criminal charges, risk management. The Children's Home of York, they are very flexible with where this location can be. So this can be at their main campus in York, or it can be at a client's home, at an attorney's office. The criteria is pretty broad. It is for all ages, men, women, children. The referral process is quite simple. Typically, you are referred for an evaluation from either private individuals, attorneys, various agencies, or even health systems. There is another part to the prevention services that Children's Home of York offers, and this is a program called PREP, P-R-E-P, which stands for Personal Responsibility Education Program. This program is geared toward adolescents, and their goal is to reduce the number of adolescents that are engaged in risky behaviors. During these services, the adolescents are provided with a lot of information, a lot of knowledge building, attitudes, beliefs are looked at. They are given skills and they learn how to change their motivation and their self-esteem. The adolescents take a life skills class. Some of the topics include HIV and AIDS prevention, pregnancy prevention. They look at issues that arise within the LGBTQ community. Within these services, with the adolescents, there is a program called Street Smart and also the Rikers Health Advocacy Program. These are used to tailor the needs of the teens, so they're getting the help that they need. It is outcome-based. A few things that they look for within this program would be the number of adolescents having unprotected sex. They'd like to see that number going down, the number of sexual partners that an adolescent may have. Adolescents may join this program because there is substance use as well. Within this program, social learning theory is used, and the goal of that is to be able to see a change in the teens' behaviors. One last part within preventative services that's offered by the Children's Home of York is an anti-gambling program. It is brand new. They are still kind of working out the kinks and figuring out how it works, but they're excited to be able to offer it and to be able to help just another avenue within the community. And there are resources out there that they're drawing from to create this program. So kind of something exciting that they're able to add on just to be able to help another branch of the community. The next branch that I want to cover with the Children's Home of York is their Bridges program, which is their psychiatric partial hospitalization program. This is meant for stabilization and the treatment of children and adolescents who are experiencing severe psychiatric symptoms and emotional disturbances. This is a program that operates year-round. It is highly structured and therapy-based. It is multi-dimensional treatment. These children and adolescents will still receive an educational service, which is provided from the Lincoln Intermediate Unit Number 12, who works with the Children's Home of York. In order to be a part of this program, you must have a referral. the Commonwealth of PA Health Choices Behavioral Health Services, the guidelines for mental health medical necessary criteria are met in order to be a patient in this program, a client in this program. It's very rigid, and these things must be met. It's open to any male or female who is in grades 1 up through 12. They must be exhibiting behaviors that indicate a risk of harm to either themselves or to others, a decrease in functioning at their developmental level, whichever that may be. This program also requires that there is 24-hour supervision. There are many people that make this team and that make this program work. This includes the psychiatrist, a master's level social worker, a licensed social worker, a master's level clinician, a bachelor's level therapist, licensed practical nurses, and then of course the Lincoln Intermediate Unit as well, covering the educational services. In order to be admitted, there has to be proof that it is the least restrictive service available at the time. Most of these children and adolescents are dealing with suicidal tendencies, homicidal tendencies, aggravation behavior, impulsiveness, psychosocial addictions, thought impairments. Most of the services are wrapped around therapy. This can be individual, group, family therapy. Medication management is also a part of what they offer. Individual mental health treatment plans are created, and they do a biopsychosocial assessment as well. Coordination of care is done, again, like I said, like with a team of people, and definitely there is a component of a community outreach component, because they do want these children and adolescents to go back into the community and be successful. And last, the program I want to talk about would be the community-based program, Strengthening Families. This is offered at the Children's Home of York. And this program exists to strengthen the family and make it a stronger unit, make it a more effective unit. This program runs for 7 weeks. It meets once a week for 2.5 hours. A meal is provided at the beginning, and then the families break up into small groups and they learn life skills. They learn conflict resolution skills, anger management skills, communication skills. And during this time, there is no cost to the program. And this program is open to any caregivers of children. It could be a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a mom, and a dad, and the children need to be between the ages of 10 and 14. Next, I want to move into talking about some of the policies and regulations that the Children's Home of York follow. They follow everything from local, state, and federal laws. The PREA Zero Tolerance Provision is the Federal Prison Rape Elimination Act, and this is strictly followed. There is a no tolerance policy on the campus of any sexual abuse and or harassment against any client at any of their campuses. This act is not only meant for prevention, but for detection and prosecution as well for anyone that has been a victim of sexual abuse within a juvenile facility across the United States. The Children's Home of York, they also comply with local, state, federal laws concerning health and safety. And confidentiality is a big one. It is a policy that they have at all of their campuses, all of their sites, and that they will not share any client's information, and there are no exceptions to this rule. The funding structure within the Children's Home of York can easily be seen on their website, where they post all of their annual reports. And the information I'm about to go over is listed on their website for the tax year 2016 to 2017. During this tax year, they had an income of $5.9 million, and expenses were in excess of $6.9 million. $525,000 that came in through the donations came in for income were from donations, gifts, legacy giving. 5.2 million came in for the income, and their main source is through insurance. So you have insurance, but then there's also some entities that were at the federal, state, and local level. They do employ a team of professionals whose job it is to fundraise and sustain the nonprofit. They also will hold fundraisers throughout the year. And they also have volunteers, and the volunteers help reduce some of the costs that they will have around their service programming. One other item I want to mention is that they do have a privacy policy in effect, and that is that no information at any point in time will be shared with anyone outside of the Children's Home of York, whether that's with the public, private, or nonprofits, other nonprofits, and there are no exceptions to this rule. So all donations and legacy giving and gifts are kept completely confidential. Next, we're going to dive into some of the challenges that may be faced by a human service worker professional. The first thing is ethical standards. The Children's Home of York, they classify confidentiality as a high importance, and at no point in time should that confidentiality be broken to anyone in the public or at a different nonprofit or another agency. This can be difficult for workers who are living in the same community that they serve. It is very typical that they will run into each other at the grocery store, at basketball games, at a school event, and just to keep that confidentiality can be a struggle from time to time, and something that as a human service worker we need to continually be working on. Documentation. Documentation is also another challenge at the Children's Home of York. Many caseworkers, especially, have a lot of paperwork to fill out. It could either be pen and paper or electronic. Children's Home of York does things both ways. Depending on what program you're in, some programs require a 24-hour window for turning in paperwork and having paperwork or electronic work finished. Other programs, you have up until a week to finish certain things. So it really depends on what program that you are in, what service you're providing to the clients. And this can be a challenge for caseworkers and social workers because they want to spend time with the kids. They want to spend time really interacting with them and helping them and giving the tools they need to be productive members of society and to better their families and their communities. And when you have to stop and do paperwork, they can kind of take away from that part of it. Personal safety is another challenge at Children's Home of York when especially dealing with the residential side and the psychiatric hospital side of things. A lot of children and adolescents are struggling with and dealing with anger management. They may lash out. Throwing punches is not an uncommon sight at the facilities. So just being aware of that, and as a social worker, just knowing how to handle yourself in that situation. Again, it comes back to training. Children's Home of York, they pride themselves on giving plenty of training in many different arenas, many different areas. And for the human service worker, this is an area that they will need to be trained in case they're in a situation where their personal safety is in jeopardy. Time, like I said, is also another factor, another challenge for human service workers. They spend a lot of case managers spend a lot of time in their vehicles, driving to foster care, resource parents, to adoptive parents, checking on children, and a lot of time can be spent in the car. And just learning how to make the most of your time, learning how to balance out time in the car, paperwork versus in-person, one-on-one care can be challenging to the human service worker. Burnout is another way that human service workers are challenged. They are busy and it's a very demanding field to be in, and learning techniques to avoid burnout is critical. And again, this is another area that the Children's Home of York does give training in. But some typical ways are just making sure that the human service worker makes sure that they take time out for themselves, that there's something that they do, that they detach from work, and they do something that they like and relax and kind of separate themselves a little bit. Another piece of that puzzle might be seeking out some guidance themselves, learning how to handle situations better so it's not as stressful. But again, training is so important. Learning strategies to avoid burnout is so critical when you're working in this field. Another challenge for the Children's Home of York, I wanted to touch on this in this part of the video versus another part of the video, would be diversity. They were very quick to mention that there's not a whole lot of diversity training that they do as far as the services they provide. There is one area that I wanted to touch on because I know that this is kind of a positive thing for them, and one area that they're really trying to improve on is diversity and diversity training and how to reach different ethnic groups. And there are 2.7 million school-aged LGBTQ youth in the United States. And within the prevention services provided at the Children's Home of York, they offer training specifically for learning about this group of people, learning about just kind of education, a lot of education around it, breaking down those stereotypes, and trying to reduce the negative behavior that is given toward this community of youth. So that is one area of diversity that they are trying to work on at the Children's Home of York. Well, guys, as we finish up here, I will just wrap up a little bit with some overall thoughts and impressions that I have of the Children's Home of York. The one thing that strikes me is that I'm just glad that back in the 70s, when they saw a greater need in the community, they did not keep themselves as simply an orphanage, but were able and willing to just expand to what the community needed. There are a lot of resources available through the Children's Home of York, and I know many people have benefited from what they have to offer. And you know, I'm glad that they took that leap of faith back in the 70s and decided to restructure and continue to build what they have today. One thing that did surprise me, I did not realize that a place like this could have a legal aspect to it. I had no idea that they would do assessments and evaluations for custody cases, and that they have an involvement in custody cases in that regard. So that was one thing that kind of surprised me. This is a particular field that I would like to get involved in a few years. I have a heart for foster care and adoption, and probably down the road I would like to be a foster care and adoptive parent as well. So this website was able to give me just a feel of what as a human service worker, what my job could look like, depending on what branch I would go into, what branch of service, and you know, just kind of gave me a really good feel for who I would be working with and how to treat them. And you know, kind of some things stood out to me as things I would like to do, others not so much. But you know, it's just a really good guideline for where I could maybe see myself in a few years. And even being an adoptive and foster care parent myself, I would, you know, recommend this website to a lot of people who are looking into that. It gives a lot of information. It's very thorough on what to expect, and you know, just a lot of great resources. The Children's Home of York continues to expand, and I wish them all the best in their future endeavors.